Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Let's Just Talk with Kim. And of course, I'm Kim. And I am excited for this evening's topic. It's times like these, what is a woman to do? And I have the fabulous minister Johnnie Mae Latham from Sharon Baptist Church. She's a very good friend of mine. She has supported my family through our ups and downs, been there tremendously for my mother and my father, just as a comforter, a supporter, and a minister. So, and in her profession, she has dealt with social work for women and done some really exciting impacting things in lives of women all over the region that has used her services. So, Minister Johnnie Mae, could you go ahead and tell the people about you?
Okay, I'll tell you about me. Okay, I am actually someone who grew up in the foster care system.
Mm,
I had my mom, unfortunately, had schizophrenia, and my dad, at the time, decided after 17 years to just kind of leave the family. Um, we were raised, my sisters and brothers and I, by the Salvation Army right here in Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, one of the places where we stayed is right down the street from Sharon Baptist Church. And as a result of that, I guess that's how I got into social work. I never thought I was going to be a social worker. I always wanted actually to be a teacher,
okay.
which I am. But at the time, I'm thinking in the public school system or whatever.
Right, right,
But
right.
I became a social worker after I went through a divorce and raised a child on my own. And I'm grateful to my family because they were very, very supportive. Around that time, I actually became a Christian. And as a result of that, and the things that I was exposed to while I was being raised by the Salvation Army, as you know, which is a Christian organization,
Mm-hmm.
I came to know the Lord in a very powerful and a very real way. My first social work job was actually for an agency here in Philadelphia that did foster care placement. Not DHS or Department of Human Services as we know it, but it was a private agency. And so the children would come to us, and at that point, we would place the children in foster care homes throughout the city. That was a very challenging job.
I can
And
only imagine.
probably the hardest thing that I ever had to do, and just to see the number of children who were being abused in our city, and then working with those families once the children went home to make sure that they kind of stayed on the straight and narrow, and providing services for them so that their children could remain at home. After being a social worker in that agency, I was asked by my supervisor that I want to go to graduate school, and I said, sure. So they were going to provide for me to go, and then they lost some of their funding. Um,
Mm.
but I had already applied to University of Penn, Bryn Mawr, Temple, where I went to undergraduate school, and I was blessed with a full ride
Woo!
at the
Look at God.
University of Pennsylvania for 2 years, and where I completed my master's degree. And here's the other blessing: a friend of mine was working within the area of the University of Penn, the hospital, and she saw this job posted on the board, and she said, "Johnny, man, I think this is your job." And I was like, "Okay, well, give me the information." And I went down, and I got pretty much hired on the spot. And I ended up being there. I said, I'll probably be here a couple of years and move on. I ended up being there for 30 years.
Mm.
And I've always worked with women. And I don't think there's any real confusion about why that happened. I am a woman. I was am a mother, and also have gone through some of the similar things that women have gone through. And I just think it was a great fit. And I loved my job. But I was ready when it was time to retire to kind of move on. And I'm still looking. I've been retired now about 7 years. I'm looking forward to all the things that the Lord still has planned for me to do. But and then also as Sharon, I went to Christian Research and Development, and
Mm-hmm.
that involved in their counseling program. And it was such a wonderful experience for me because I could take what I learned in the Christian realm into my work. And it really kind of revolutionized how I taught people by my actions and how I was able to interact with them to get them to hopefully a better place in their life. So I'm really happy about how God has used all of those avenues of my life to kind of get to where I am right now.
You have such a rich story. I mean, from just your beginnings of being in the foster care system, which I did not know. Hey, Sharita, that's my niece. She's always here to support me. I did not know all of that. And you carry yourself in a way that is so inspiring. I knew just the portion of your social work and helping women, not so much of the other history. And that's why I felt that you would be an ideal candidate. But even from your story, from just being a woman and traveling the track that God allowed you to travel or put you on to be a witness for Him is just so amazing. So you can talk from so many diverse positions because you were in the foster care system. So you can talk about that being a woman or a child or female child growing up and dealing with very difficult times and then moving into your adult life and just dealing with all of that. Because when I thought of the title for tonight, when you think about what's happening in today's society to women in general, not just with Roe versus Wade, but sometimes women are not appreciated to the point of the value they bring to a company, to a house, to family, and typically are the matriarchs of the family. When one passes on, then whoever is next in line, they take on that position. So when it comes to women, we have so much always on our plate. And I thought to myself, well, what are we supposed to do with all that? You know, when me speaking personally, sometimes I have so many things that I'm juggling that it makes me wonder, how am I going to get through it all? And to be quite frankly, I can't even imagine myself going through this without Jesus Christ. Like,
Amen.
there's no way I could go through all that I've been
Absolutely.
through
Yeah.
without Him, because
Right.
it wasn't my strength, it was His strength.
Right.
But just like on the topics of the day, like with Roe versus Wade, what is your thoughts when you were in the midst of it, helping women? What is your thoughts personally and professionally on how that impacts women today?
Well, I know one of the things, like I said, like you said, I don't know how I would have done anything had I not been a Christian.
Hmm.
When I became a Christian, and actually when I got this job, that particular job, I was like, I came in around the time where the drug use was extremely high,
Mm,
and a lot of the women that were coming in pregnant were users,
hmm.
and I think that the thing that helped me the most as a Christian is learning not to be so judgmental,
Come on, come on.
because the reality that I saw every day, and some of the things that the women that I saw went through on an everyday basis, there's just it's a wonder they weren't doing more than that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think what it did for me was to recognize that in the position that I was in, I wasn't there to judge them. I was
Right.
there to give them their options, for one thing. And at that time, the option, of course, one of them was abortion. They could place their children for foster care. I mean, for either foster care or adoption, or they could keep their children. So that was my job, was not to tell them what to do or even to judge anything that they did do, but to at least lead them to the resources that were available for them so that they could make their decisions.
Right.
Um, and like I said, I saw the gambit. I saw women I saw children. I'll never forget. We had a young lady. She wasn't my direct client, but I was consulted on this situation. She was a paraplegic who actually had cerebral palsy. She was
Mm.
about 13. She was pregnant. And everybody was trying to figure out how she got pregnant because she was so
Right.
contorted that nobody could even imagine that. And
Hmm.
as like I said, she was only 13, and so they had to make a decision. Her family had to make this hard decision as to whether or not to allow her to keep this baby. So they found out, actually, I think that it was a caretaker that
Hmm.
had done what they did, which caused that situation. And like I said, I don't know her name. I didn't even know her name. I just knew that they consulted me on um, who to talk to. And at the
Right.
hospital at that time, they had done away with the policy of abortion on any occasion.
Mm.
And so she kind of fell into that category of the special situation. And the family decided against her going through that pregnancy.
Right. Right.
I had an 11-year-old who had a 9-pound baby through cesarean section. She was from a family who the mother was an addict. She had been in the foster care system but kept running away, and somehow met a young man that was about 17 years old, and they got together, and voila. So she had this baby, and then they came to take the baby from her because they didn't. They, at that time, and they still do this. They try to place a mom and a baby together if it requires a placement. And at the time, there was no one who could take both she and the baby.
Mm.
So they decided to place her apart from that baby.
Oh.
When they came to get the baby, I heard wailing like I had never heard in my life before. Because even though she was a young girl, this was her child.
Right.
Okay. So they were able to work it out where a family member was able to take both of them. So that was really a joy for me to know that this kid would be with her child. And then we've had several, then I had experience with so many other women who either went through abortions and then had very difficult times accepting what they had done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I had women who decided to keep their children and were very angry with the children because of how that came about, which in many cases was a rape situation. But they
Okay.
kept the child because the family said so. Now, as a Christian, quite naturally, my thing is conception is when life begins. And
Right.
so for me and any decision that I would help anyone to understand, I am not going to try to sway you. I'm just going to tell you the facts. If you're a Christian, I'm going to point you back to the Lord. That's the first and
That's
foremost.
it.
I gotta go there.
Yeah.
What does the Lord say about that? And then it would be it had to be their choice in terms of what they decided. And then as a social worker, whatever I needed to do to support them, whatever decision that was, okay, I'm here. And I believe that even though the Lord, frowns upon that, I know that He loves us. He gives us the grace to love us through the situation. And so
Right. Right.
that was my role then, and that's my role now as a Christian counselor. If someone comes to me and that's their issue, we're going to talk about what does the Lord say,
Hmm.
okay, and then we're going to look at, okay, how are you going to handle this one way or another? Whatever you decide to do, we got your back. Okay,
Hmm.
we're here for you. We're going to pray you through it. We're going to get you through it, or whatever. And like I know this has been such a big political football and all that kind of stuff. And I know even in the church how difficult this is because it's so divided in terms of the thoughts on that. And like I said, my first thought is the Lord said conception begins as soon as that happens. And at the same time, I know that people really struggle with their reasonings for wanting not to have a child at the time that they have it. On the flip side of it, I've seen women who decided to not have a baby at 20 or 25, and then at 40, now they want a child and they can't. So
Mm,
the pain of that is very, very real
right.
as well. So whatever someone's choice is, they have to live with that. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like I said, as a Christian, we got to start first with what does God say, and
Mm-hmm.
then in some situations, like we know where there's a child involved or incest or rape, that's a little harder to digest, and people have to make that decision for themselves and their families. And then, as Christians, as counselors, as people who help, just be there for them, to send them to where they need to go to get the help.
Right. One of the things you said first is something that I think we need to really take hold of, and that is judgment.
Mhm.
That we tend to judge without knowing the circumstances. We tend to tell you what you should do, and not really look at everything that happens, that's affecting this woman.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that really needs to be outed in the way that we have no right to judge a person because we never walked in their shoes. You know, one of my favorite scriptures is in Galatians 6, where it talks about to restore one another, you know, because that's what we need to do. And that's what you spoke about: encourage and restore and help them, not bash them, not condemn them, which we cannot do, not
Mhm.
force them. You know, like for me, when it comes to Roe versus Wade, I take the same position as you do. Like, I'm not, me personally, based off of the word of God, I'm not for it. However, I am for a woman having the right to make a decision, and that's for anyone. I believe, because if you think about it, that's how Christ was. He didn't force anything on you. You
Mhm.
had to make the decision to follow him. So I think sometimes we get too puffed up and want to judge people or tell them what they should or shouldn't do, but then you're not there when they got to walk that walk with either decision. You're not walking with them. Thank God for people like yourself who are walking with them, who are encouraging them from a workplace position or spiritual guidance, to help them process whatever decision that they had to make.
Mhm.
I just don't like the fact that we are telling people what they can and cannot do. But I do appreciate the fact, from what I'm understanding, that right now Pennsylvania has not made that judgment, to force women. That's where we live, so bless God for that. But I don't think we should ever really judge anyone or take a position of judgment. My niece just said, right, some people are very judgmental, and we need to get away from that. We need to just be supportive. You know, I think one thing that we have as women, we have a powerful sisterhood, you know, and we need to lean on that more. Um,
Well,
so
that
I just
and
glad
that
you
being
said
said,
that.
yeah, that being said too, the other thing with that though, we, like I said, we need to be teaching our children
Mm-hmm.
as much as we can about we hear a lot about birth control. We hear a lot about that. We do not talk about abstinence,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like a cuss word to talk about abstinence because everybody just assumes, and the truth of the matter, okay, just think about it. We, in this generation, of course, we are if we're marrying at all, we're marrying later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, back in our parents' day, people got married usually right out of high school or something like that. So the time frame for abstinence, I'll say, was generally a little shorter. Okay, so you're walking around, you're 35 and you're 40, you're having all this hormonal stuff going on, and a lot of people are opting to do their careers,
Mm-hmm.
and then have children later and things of that nature.
Right.
So quite naturally, more times than not, two adults are seemingly getting together, in a sexual way. So I just think that as we're raising our children, 'cause like, I mean, I have grandchildren who have children, and I used to tell her when I really wanted them to wait till they got married and all that kind of stuff. They didn't. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I am so grateful that they chose to keep their children,
Right.
and so when I see these little faces and they're part of my life and all that kind of stuff, I'm really grateful for that. Now, had they come to me and told me that they wanted to do other, I probably would have been saddened by that at that
Right.
point.
Absolutely.
But I would have stood by them regardless, But I
Mm-hmm.
thank God that that's what their choice was. But like I said, you can tell your children all the consequences. And the truth of the matter, there are consequences to these decisions.
Every action.
Whether you decide to postpone your sexual relationship, or you decide that you want to have sex before marriage or whatever, even though God is real clear about why He doesn't want us to do that, and we
Mm-hmm.
go when we do that, and then there's consequences. Either sometimes in the case that I saw a lot of diseases. Sometimes I saw, like I said, pregnancies,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of broken hearts and relationships along the way. And like somebody says, I see what your niece said. Some kids want to be married, don't want to be married, but they want to
Mm-hmm.
have kids.
Kids. Right.
But I know for me as a single parent, and I was married when I had him, but at the same time, I don't think I would ever want to be me personally, a single parent without the support of a husband.
No,
You
and I
know,
did it as well. I
you know.
no, 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 no.
So you know what I'm saying. But for the person that does that now,
Mm-hmm.
God bless you. But I just think it's just a really hard place to be.
It is.
And it's already parenting is difficult enough when you have two parents that are on the same page. Much
Mm-hmm.
less trying to do it on your own or part time.
Right.
We've been blessed to have family members that stepped in and helped and all of that kind of stuff. So I think we have to look at our moral compass too and ask ourselves if this is the best thing that I can do for my life, and then if I'm bringing a child into that situation, be prepared. Of course, reach out for as much help as you can, but be prepared that it's going to be a difficult ride. I mean, just being a parent is difficult.
Right.
And
Right.
getting so many messages. I feel bad for the kids today. They have so many different messages that I don't think, being we had coming up. It was bad enough, but I mean, every time you turn on the TV, there's a new fad, there's a new way of thinking, there's all those kind of things. So I just think that our kids are really under attack in the sense that they get so much information,
Yeah. This nowadays,
almost too
like
much information.
you have so much coming at your children all at once is ridiculous. And you're right. Like I actually had two sons. My first son passed away when he was 5.5. Excuse me, 5.5 months. So when I actually got pregnant prior to marriage, we were planning on being married,
Right.
and
Same
I
situation.
ended up getting pregnant. But then my first son, he passed. Then I had my second son within the marriage, and then unfortunately the marriage dissolved. So, but the one thing I am so very grateful is I wanted 3 kids. Let me tell you how great God is that He only gave me one. Because I can't imagine, and I have friends who have multiple children, not single, fully married, and it's rough.
Yes.
And I thought my one, getting him back and forth to all the activities, making sure that he participated in everything that he wanted to participate in was difficult, to the point that he was an all around sports kid. And I said, Baseball got to go because I need at least spring
Right.
because it's so difficult. But it is a choice. It's a choice that you have to make, and it isn't an easy choice,
Right.
especially if you're not married and you have that child, because the woman will take the brunt most of the time, most
Most of the time.
often, of the responsibility. Now, there are some men and men that I know that is straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Like they have their children as much as the mother is every other week. So, but typically it is always falling on the mother's lap to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to raising your child. And it's very, very challenging. Right, Sonia, it's challenging for every parent, but it's even more so. I can only attest to us being a single parent,
Right. Right.
because that was my life.
Mhm.
And it's very difficult. It's hard. And when I used to be working with the youth ministries, I used to tell them like, yo, trust me when I tell you, you don't want this life.
No.
This life ain't fun. It ain't fun. Okay. It's a
Yeah.
lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's a lot of long nights.
Yeah.
It's a lot of only you.
Mhm.
So, make the decision wise. Some listened, some didn't, and it is what it is. But
And like you said, it's not that you don't love your child. It's just that
yeah,
the reality is, when you become a parent, you have to put some things on the back burner. Okay, you have to recognize that this child's needs are, yeah. Somebody said sacrifice.
right,
That's
yeah.
what you need. That's what you have to do. Because that's part of being a parent. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, and I see the sister saying,
Right.
even married, it is a hard job. It's the hardest thing. And like I said, it is not for wimps. That's for sure. you know,
Wait, don't move too fast. Don't move too fast.
and then
Parenting
a lot of
is
people just
not for
assume,
the weak.
just assume because you're a woman, you can handle it.
Right. Yeah.
And
No.
and, and traditionally, as Black women, I think we have kind of taken on that role that we can
Mm-hmm.
handle it. And then sometimes we really need to reach out to other sisters and other people. And like I'm really fortunate too, because as I was raising my son, I had a great family.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I have sisters, I have brothers who stepped in to help, and just other people that I grew up with who were there for me during that difficult transition to single parenting, and then
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get him, to a place where I was like, well, look, I told him straight up, you're at least going to finish high school, okay? After that, you can decide what you want to do. If you want to go to college, if you want to go into the army, or whatever, but
Right.
you
Right.
want to at least get through high school. And he started out in college, but that wasn't for him. But then
Mm-hmm.
he became an EMT, and then he's
Wow.
doing dialysis and all that kind of stuff. And he loves it, and he's really fantastic at it. And he's
Mm-hmm.
a father of three boys, and he's a grandfather now. And I love how they are with they love their children, and they're really
Right.
there for
Right.
them. And they got that from my son, because my son really stuck and he stayed and he really did what he knew best to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, nothing was perfect, just like I wasn't a perfect parent either. Sometimes I sit back and I say,
Right.
"Is one of the boys still alive?" Yeah,
Child. So I'm
because
gonna be honest with you. There's been times that I would say to my son, like, "I'm sorry, like I could have did better with this," and
Mhm.
he'd be like, "Mom, you did the best you could
And
do."
that's it.
But for me, sometimes I carry my own guilt of
Mhm.
think like, "Dang, I wish I would have did this,
Woulda,
or I would
coulda,
have went
shoulda.
this." Yeah,
Mhm.
but my son, he always encourages me like, "No, mom, you was the best mom ever. You did everything for me."
Absolutely.
And he was definitely a blessing to the point, of course, after losing my first son. But even when it was just me and him, we would have rolled dogs together. Anywhere you see me, you see my son. Even in ministry,
Right.
anywhere you see me, you see my son. So, but he was a type of kid, knowing that when we went through the most difficult times, where he would not even ask me for anything for Christmas. it was whatever you got me. I would say, well, what do you want? He'd be
Mhm.
like, whatever you can get me. He would never ask. And that was such a light-hearted thing for me because I didn't have to be pressured on giving him something that I couldn't afford. And then I think it was maybe when he turned 13 was the first time he asked me for something. And I was like, Mom, you got to help me get this because he don't ask for nothing. And this is his first time asking. I got to get this for. But you try to do the best you can for your child with the resources you have. And I definitely, we have to keep that whole village going, especially for African
Absolutely.
Americans.
Yeah.
There's so much power in our village. It's power with support. It's power with resources. It's power with education of
Mhm.
what to do or what not to do.
Mhm.
It's so much power in that village of sisterhood. And it makes me think back in biblical times how the women stuck together back then. Like we need to maintain that and keep that. And there's so many things out there, I think, for us, but we have to open ourselves up. Sometimes we get stuck in like that mode of I can't do women. Women is women. No, yes, we
Mhm.
can. Don't
Mhm.
let other people fill your head with the lies of women don't get along because women get along very well. There's too many women ministries, women groups, the divas that go on trips together. Like it's so many out there that, is wealth and within a woman. And, I have another show about men praying, but it is fact that women do so much even in the church where we pray and we serve.
Yeah.
To me, like
True.
that's where you see so much of our servanthood and even bringing it back into our homes. So it's just so important to have those connections because like if I had a situation, I know I can call you, I can call Reverend Sharon, I can call so many women that have so much experience, like Minister Tara, who has she's in the DHS system. And when
Right.
one of my family members was going through that process, I was asking her, well, what should we do here? What should we
Mhm.
do here? I also have a good, my best friend, I've known her since we were in kindergarten or first grade one, and she is a supervisor in the DHS system. So I was texting her, what should I do? This is happening. What should he do? Can you call him and just tell him blah, blah, blah? So it's like so much resources right within our own circle that can help get us through and just to kind of support one another with whatever the scenario is.
And one of the things, like I said, I learned as I was working with a lot of the young women that I worked with. Uh, a lot of people just assume that they are just, well, for lack of a better word, trifling. And a lot of times it's not that. It's, like I said, they haven't been taught. One of the things that we need, especially in churches, and Titus talks about, the older women teaching the younger women.
Yes,
You
yes.
really got to take some time with the younger women to help them to see their value, their worth, help them to see what kinds of things they should be doing as single women, and then those who are mothers or wanting to be mothers,
Hmm.
how to prepare even to be that as much as they can be. And rather than sitting around, oh, she's just trifling. And truthfully, I will say this honestly, when I first started, I was like, Lord, are you sure you want me to be here? It was just overwhelming the
Right.
things that I was seeing,
Right, right.
And the thing that I learned about people who are going through situations like that, you think that you're helping you, a lot of times they're actually helping you. Yeah, you think
Hmm.
you're helping them, but
Them, you're
you
helping
actually
you.
end up being helped. Because I
Hmm.
just learned to be sensitive. I learned the value of these girls and these women, and tried very much to always make sure that I let them know. I know you're going through something, and maybe how you got there wasn't the best way to get there,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Hmm.
somehow we're gonna get through this. Okay.
Right.
And it really helped me in terms of being not just a Christian, but a woman, to see that I was able to make a difference in some of those women's lives. And some
Right.
came back years later. One case in particular that came to mind, it was a young woman who literally had taken the life of one of her children.
Mm.
She was going through some mental illness,
Mhm.
and she took the life of her child because of the voice that she heard in her head.
Mhm.
And this young lady ended up um, in a mental facility. They took her child of course, the next children, because she had three other kids. And I worked with her with two of those kids. I remember vividly, it was really kind of funny. When she came in, of course, the staff was like really upset because they're like, okay, she's back. She's having another child. They should have done something. They
Mhm.
should have made it so she wouldn't have another child. But when she came back, they placed that child. All the children were placed together. She ended up having, I believe, four kids altogether.
Okay.
I had her with two of those children. And each time that I saw her, she was a little bit better because they finally got the right medications, all that kind of stuff. So the last child that she had, she came in, and the doctor went in to talk to her. And of course, the staff was already talking. Well, this is the woman that killed her child, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
You know. And I was saying that used to really make me kind of crazy how they would talk about people. But anywho,
Right.
so when she came in to have her last child, they wanted the psychiatrist to talk to her, I guess, to make the evaluation as to whether she could take the child home. And so when she came when they went in to see her, and she wouldn't talk to them at all. So then they called me in, and I went in to talk to her. And she remembered my name, and she called me by name and everything. And then I asked her the questions that they wanted. Okay, like what's going to happen with the baby? Well, the kid's going to go into foster care with the other kids. She knew
Mhm.
her social worker. She knew her child's foster mom, and they had forged a relationship where they actually were allowed to see each other. And it was really kind of comical because she said, I said to her, why didn't you talk to the psychiatrist when he came in? She said, well, he figured I was crazy, so I'm just going to act that way for him, you know. And so when I went back out and I told him everything that he
Mhm.
wanted to know, he said, I wonder why she wouldn't talk to him. I said, because she thinks that you expect her to act a certain way.
Mm.
And the child had to stay in the hospital a couple extra days before foster care, but she visited with the child, and they had, you know, appropriately, they had someone sitting with her just to make sure that nothing happened of a negative nature. And when it was time for the baby to go, she put the child's clothes in, and she set them by the baby's bed, and she said to the baby, I'll see you in a few weeks when it's time for us to visit. And that to me was just like, wow, you know, this woman, yes, she had that issue and all of that, but do dare we have the right to continue to treat her the same way, you know,
Right.
just because she had made, and it was a horrific situation, but at the time
Mhm.
she was mentally ill, and that's what she did, you know. But just because I treated her like a human being, when she saw me, she was glad to see me. She was willing to work with me, and she left without any kind of issue. And it was just glad, I was just glad to know that she was able to see her child. Now this is the irony of all of that. The year that I retired, her oldest daughter came into the hospital to have a child.
Mm.
And when I saw her, I said, by any chance, are you so and so's daughter? And she said, yes, I am. This child or woman was so radiant and so
Mm.
beautiful. And when I mentioned her mother's name, she smiled.
Mm.
And that kind of smile was like, wow, my mom was pretty cool. Well, what I had found out is her mother had passed away. But what happened, because the system in this situation really worked with her,
Mhm.
um, and she got the kind of help that she needed, even though she passed away, I think she was only in her late 40s. She had a relationship with all those children, and the
Mm.
relationship that she had was so good that they loved her, and they saw not a crazy woman, they saw a woman that loved them. And that's
Right.
how when I saw this girl come in, and she was just radiant, and I just was like, wow. And I said her mom's name, and she smiled so broadly, and I was just like, wow. something really happened in that relationship that this girl was able to smile like that about her own mom, you know. So that's what I'm saying. We yes, we have to look at the situation and
Mm-hmm.
recognize that it might be something either dangerous or tenuous or whatever, but how can we help to not make it worse than what it really was,
Right, right,
you know?
right.
And so when we're dealing with people who are maybe doing things that we know are just totally out of the realm of what it should be, we gotta first of all look at the whole situation. Don't be, like I said, don't just judge because of what you heard or what you saw. And how you approach a person when they're going through something like that can really make a difference in terms of how healthy they end up being in the end. And then
Right.
one of my things was when I saw patients at that hospital, either in the clinic or in the inpatient, my thing was like, I'm not here to make your situation any worse. Okay, what can I do to help you in this situation? I said, yep, you're in a bad spot because a lot of the women I had to call and then DHS would come and get those babies
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't have a place to go. But I always would
Right.
say, okay, do you have another option other than foster care? If you got family, get them on the phone, see if they can come in and do whatever they're going to do. And let's see if we can keep your baby in the family. But if we can't, guess what? Your baby's still going to be taken care of. And we're going to
Right.
try to get you into rehab or whatever else you may need to be able to take care of your child. And that was my thing. You're a human being. You're still a person. You know, yes, that this is not a good thing that brought you to my attention, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But
Mm-hmm.
at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, there's got to be a way for me to help you to work through whatever it is. And if you really want that, then I'm here to help you to do that, you know. So as sisters, as brothers, as whatever, do the best that you can to try to um, focus try to get that person focused on the best part of them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
deal with the worst part of you, and then let's see what we can do. And of course, as a Christian, whatever I did, I prayed first. I prayed before I
Right.
talked to people because I wanted God to help me to know the best way to approach this person, you know. And of course, as a Christian in a environment where it's a secular environment, I can't go in there, you know, praying all over everybody.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
some days I would say, God, can you please send me somebody I can pray with today? And I remember a young lady came in, and because she had gotten pregnant, she was upset because she was a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I used to be a Christian. I said, wait a minute, what do you mean you used to be a Christian? And so she said, well, now that I'm pregnant, yeah, that doesn't make you not a Christian.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, it just makes okay. You made a very bad mistake, and then this is the situation that you're in. I
Right.
said, but God still loves you. He still loves
Mm-hmm.
that baby, and you know He hasn't forsaken you. And so
Right.
she was just so grateful to hear that. She needed to hear that. The
Mm-hmm.
irony too of that was, and I said to her, I said, "You are a Christian," and I said, "Generally, I don't pray for people. I'm not allowed. But if you would like me to, I would love to pray for you." And so she said, would you please? So I prayed for her. She recommitted her life to Christ. Several weeks later, at the church where we attend, we were going on one of our bus trips to visit another church, and it was
Mm-hmm.
2 bus loads. I looked up, and this girl was getting off the bus. And I said, oh, wow, you know, what's going on? So she said, I joined the church.
Oh wow.
She literally got, you know, she really prayed that prayer and she earnestly heard it and felt God's love for her. She ended up giving her life back, you know, going back to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you
Mm-hmm.
know, so this is so just so important. Okay. Hi.
That's Deacon Shockley.
Woo, that's a good one. That's a really, really good question because I think there is a lot of church hurt,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, and because we're being judgmental or because sometimes we don't take the time even to help the way we should. It is hard to do that, and just like anything else, with the elephant, you take a bite at a time. So it means a person at a time can make a difference. You know, all it takes is one person to connect with somebody that will make that difference for them, and say, well, the whole church ain't like that,
Right, right.
and all of that. And it's true. A lot of times at church we hurt people, not, and some people not even intentionally, but just because of what comes out of our mouths or how people treat that person, like they're a pariah or something like that, like they have leprosy or whatever, and it's very difficult.
And I think it also starts from the leadership. Like I
Mhm.
feel like Bishop, he is very sensitive to church hurt, where if he finds out about it, every meeting I've ever been in with him and there's been an issue, he's always seemed to be very open. Like if someone said something that was not appropriate, I need to know about it.
Mhm.
Because sometimes that judgment, especially with women, when it comes to the church, and it's factual, it's more so on the woman because you see the situation on the
Mhm.
woman because
Mhm.
she's carrying the
Mhm.
baby.
Mhm. Mhm.
You don't see the anything on the man. The man goes about his life with if you don't point him out, no one would ever know.
Well, it's like the woman caught in adultery.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Nobody said anything about the man she was laying with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was all about her.
Yeah.
Y'all, everybody want to stone her, but yet and still, what about the dude? He was just what? Wait, was she in bed by herself?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but we have to change that and realize that we can't condemn our women for this or make them more
It's more responsible for that
for that.
situation. Mhm.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
It's got to be equal terms, and it's still like for me again, we need to have loving and open hearts because that's what God calls us to. God calls us to rebuild, to restore, to encourage. We can't always be fire and brimstone. You know what I'm saying? We need to encourage women and men that this too shall pass. Like, yeah, this
You
is
did
the
this.
consequence
Yep.
of it,
Mhm. Mhm.
but okay, now let's learn how to walk through this so that you don't return back to this place. And if the specific sin is a child, so let's surround this woman so that she can have the support she needs to care for actually him and her,
Mhm.
because he needs to learn how the men need to circle that man so he understands what it really means to be a father. And the like you spoke on, the tightest women, the older women need to surround that woman or that person so that she understands. And I don't know why I said person, but I'm thinking of woman, child in the sense of person, but that she understands the walk she's about to go through. And I think we need to really shift our minds in that aspect of what we're really called to do.
And like you said,
Then
unfortunately, sometimes older women sometimes project like somehow they never committed any kind of sin.
oh, what? Come on. Yeah, y'all, some older women, they ain't never did a thing. They
Yeah, it's
ain't
like, okay,
never.
I was always saved, come on,
Yeah,
and that's
like,
one thing I'm real straight up about when I'm talking to my nieces and even my grandson. My grandsons used to say, if I ask you a question, will you tell me the truth? I'm straight up about something. Now, I'm not getting into every little detail of any of my sin issue per se, but I
mhm.
will let them know, oh, no, grandma wasn't always, you know, and so I think it's just so important that when we as older women, like I said, we get to a certain level in our lives, we're okay, yeah, we've been through a few things and
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. When we see somebody who's struggling in that area, like, not to condemn them,
Right.
you know, let them know, yeah, well, you kind of dropped the ball. You did drop the ball on
Right.
that.
Oh,
But you
absolutely.
got to deal with the fact that sin
Right.
is sin.
We gotta confess. We gotta
But
confess.
at the same time, we don't have to chew them up and spit them out and make them feel any worse than. And that's why God says that there's no there, especially if you're Christian, there is now no condemnation to them who
Mhm.
walk in Christ Jesus. Okay, and then
Right.
yes, okay, I strayed, I did whatever I did. Help me to get back to that.
Restore. Mhm.
Help me to know that I'm really help me to understand that I am forgiven. And yes, help me also to maybe figure out how not to go down that same road again. And I think that's we got to do that. And I agree that there are sometimes in church and stuff we're I mean, God is like, what are y'all? How are y'all representing me here in this thing? Yes, we know that He deals with us, when we do stuff, but we really got to do. Somebody said sensitive. Absolutely. Starting with leadership. You're absolutely right. I think as leaders, you got to know who you're dealing with. These are people that God has entrusted us to, and with, and we have to really walk this thing a little bit better, and
it's
if they
in
don't
the
know,
church and outside the church.
in and out.
In and out. It's not just within the church walls. We as Christians are to be different. We
The
are
salt and
not.
the light.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be like the world.
Yeah.
We're supposed to walk different. We're supposed to talk different. We're supposed to act different. Everything about us should be different. So even outside of the church, you got to show that love. Either you got love or you don't. Either you, I'm getting into myself. You rocking with Christ or you not.
Right.
Like, what is it?
Be
What we
yourself.
doing?
Yeah. I mean, and that being said, recognizing too, like these all have sinned, okay, and we all mess up. So when we see people floundering in those areas, even in the leadership, like you said, pointing out some things that we see, and sitting down and figuring out how we can do this thing better than we're doing it,
You're right, Deacon Shockley. It does not come natural for all, and it does need to be
It
training,
needs to be
and
taught.
it needs to be, and because even when you think about counseling, just to get counseling, not every minister is equipped to counsel,
Absolutely.
and then it comes a time for every Christian, from a pastor, bishop, minister, whatever your title is, there's some things you're not equipped to be counseling.
It's not your
Like,
gift. You're not
right.
gifted in that area.
You need to, but even from a professional standing, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes there's some clinical, like the woman you were speaking about who had a psychological issue.
Right.
Sometimes, I'm a believer of medication and assistance because, hey, I believe that God created everything, that He created those with the brilliance to come up with the medication to help stabilize your train of thought. And we should not, it's not always, oh, we're going to pray this out. No, we're going to go to the doctor who God gifted to help diagnose you, to get you on whatever right chemical level you need to be on, whatever balance needs to be taking place. Because it's not like, I remember going to a conference once, and this woman, she was talking about how she was struggling so bad, and she was just praying because she didn't want to have to take the medication. And the woman, they was like, oh, so you saying like the man with the story of the man who kept asking God for help, but the guy he sent a boat, he sent this, he sent that, and he was like, no, he's waiting for God himself to come and help me. Well, God got all this up in here. He got everything. And there's so many opportunities, so many resources that is at your fingertips that you need to tap into. And I definitely, I believe you should do both. I believe in full counseling, holistic counseling, where if you need some stimulant to help balance you chemically, that you also need a spiritual aspect to it. So I prefer spiritual and clinical counselors if that's what you require, not just one-sided. Because for a Christian, if you don't have a Christian background, you're not in the Lord, there's only so far you can take me.
Because I mean, we all, like, for instance, people talk about depression often, and
that was just my niece. I'm just putting up the ones I missed. Okay. She was saying some people act like they never sinned.
Okay. Yeah. Like some people, we all get depressed for various reasons. Okay. But at the same time, then there's that, like you said, there's that clinical piece where now there's a chemical imbalance and whatever. And in that case, you may actually need some help to get back on course. Like
Right.
I said, because we know everything doesn't require medication, but there are things that really do. Like I know with my mother, with her history of schizophrenia, it was me personally, I do think that she was maybe misdiagnosed when she first went into her depression, because it
Hmm.
was always after a child that she had depression.
Right.
And
Right.
I think back in the day, one of the biggest things that they did, everybody got Thorazine no matter what your situation was. And I really think
Right.
that might have helped her psychosis to be maybe a little worse than it was. But
Hmm.
when they got to a better point, in terms of the medications where it really helped her, we could tell the difference when she was
Right.
on it, and then we could tell when she wasn't on it. So
Hmm.
like you said, that helped her, and it was like night and day. When she was on her medication, she was just a normal everyday situation for her. And when she would decide that she didn't want to take it because she was tired, and then that's what happens with a lot of people. I don't want to take this anymore. Well, the reality is you got to take it because
Right.
you really do need this.
Right.
But
And a
when
lot of
she,
times it's life, it can
like,
be a lifelong journey.
yes, and it's unfortunate, but it's true.
Right.
So in that situation, when she would be on the medication, she'd be great, and then sometimes when she would decide she didn't want to be on it, then you could see the difference, and we would have to say, "Mom, look, now see, you were doing okay until you decide you want to do
Right.
this." So
Hmm.
to try to
Hmm.
talk her into getting back on, and then she would feel so much better when she was really on it and all of that. So like I said, we have to have that balance. And like I said, the spiritual piece is always, you always start with that, deal with that. But like you said, people are trained so that they can kind of help you make those decisions in terms of other things that you might need to make you do better with whatever your circumstance are. And it's a real place when somebody has clinical depression, and it's
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and like I said, nobody's waking up every day and say, well, I want to. I want to be schizophrenic, or I want to be this or that. And then, you go into the whole demonic, people get into this whole demonic realm and all that kind of stuff. They said and we understand that that's out there too. But a
Hmm.
lot of people, like you said, it is a chemical imbalance. And if they can find the right balance for them, a lot of times they can function much more easily.
Yeah, I'm a very strong advocate for counseling, for medication as well. I take medication. I had been diagnosed with PTSD. I didn't get that diagnosis until after our house fire. But the reality of it is, through counseling, spiritual counseling, we identified that my PTSD actually started with the loss of my first child.
Sure.
Like that's when it actually started. And with the fire, then I start like, yeah, like I don't have any problems with taking my medication because after the fire, I was having severe night terrors. Severe, no, I can't. Like
Mhm.
what you see on like the TV shows from war veterans or whatever, or anybody like that, and they go through that intense dreaming, they wake up sweating, like it's real. Like I'd had it. Mine, of course, because it kind of triggered at the fire, it was where I was always trying to save my family. Like it was a tsunami, it was a house fire, it was like all these different scenarios that I would dream vividly, and even wake up as if feeling my muscles felt like the dream. Like I
Mhm.
literally went through the dream.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until my doctor had put me on this medication that finally settled that down. And it, like, for me, like I ain't going through that again. That was some rough stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
And always not being able to save them. That's the thing. Like I would never be able to save them. I would almost be there, and then somehow they would wish out of my hands or whatever the case would be. So, I'm just a strong believer, and I think that for anyone who is out there that needs help, needs resources, just, I'm on Facebook. Let's Just Talk with Kim. You can send me a message there. Um, if you're on Instagram, also Let's Just Talk with Kim. I'm everywhere. Let's Just Talk with Kim. Any resources you need, I trust me, I have resources for you.
And I mean, with the social media the way it is and everything like that, you can pretty much find out what's in your area
Mm-hmm. By
You
Google.
know, by Google, yeah, just Googling, but just getting on and calling your local, um, clinics and things of that nature. I think
Right.
one of the things that I'm finding right now, though, is like so many the clinicians are really burnt toast right about
Yeah,
now.
right now. Yeah,
Between
unfortunately.
yeah, between ministry, yeah, absolutely. Between the COVID and all the things that are going
Yeah.
on in our city in particular,
Right.
the racial stuff is going. There's a lot of people who have been doing counseling for a long time who are like
Yeah.
totally overwhelmed with what they're doing, but that doesn't mean you still don't continue to reach out until you find the right person for you too. And I know one of the things that a lot of the Christian counselors sometimes they don't do the insurances as much, and
Right.
part of that is if that is their livelihood, and people say, well, they charge them, that's their livelihood. They're not working with an agency or someone that's paying their salary every week and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes when they put those insurance claims in, it takes a long time for them to get some money back
Money
for
back. Yeah,
for
yeah,
for
yeah.
what they do, and they do deserve to be compensated for what
Compensated.
they're doing.
Absolutely.
So it's not that they're trying to be greedy or anything like that. It's just you go to work every day, you want a paycheck of some sort, but you
Hmm.
still got to pay your own bills and things like that. So some of them do go by cash, but a lot of them do like fee for service, so that if your income is very low, they may only charge you 25 or
Right.
20
They do a,
dollars
a
Right,
sliding scale.
sliding
Yeah.
scale.
And
So
also, you got to think about it too. For those of you who are working, a lot of jobs offer the EAP program, which is
EAP
Employee
program,
Assistance Program,
right?
where they will give you a certain amount of free sessions just because
Absolutely.
you're an employee. Also, insurance companies have different things where you might be able to speak with a social worker or a nurse to help you manage things or get right resources that you need. So there is, for any woman who is out there, or even a man that's out there struggling with anything, there is so many opportunities out there. And even a lot of times with the employee assistance program, some of them will cover those that's even in your household, so that they actually live with you. So let's say if someone in your family, you're seeing some signs that they may need assistance, that your employees and assistance program may cover them. So you just need to check it out, and look for resources. It's so many different things. Like in the city of Philadelphia, everybody knows like the murder rate is ridiculous. Okay. But they, in the city of Philadelphia, they have what's called a victims unit, where they will help you financially. They will help you with whatever type of assistance you need from someone to help you with planning things. They got, you get a social worker, you can get a counselor, you can get so many different resources from them that a lot of people don't even know about it. Like I had told someone about it at my job. I work in healthcare, and now she calls me a lot to get some of the information. So there's information out there for those who are in that type of situation. And
And
it's,
call your council
yeah,
people, and people like that. Sometimes they have information that could be useful to you.
right,
So,
right. Yeah, so I can only speak for Philadelphia. Like their victims unit does a lot. I mean, they helped my family tremendously. I've shared on here about my nephew being murdered last year, and it was so much assistance that, it was unbelievable that all they knew. I knew about the financial piece, sort of, only of if you are a victim on the streets of Philadelphia, where they would give you a stipend. But what they do when someone is murdered on the streets of Philadelphia is phenomenal. I give them all kinds of credit on how they were able to service my family. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So we done reached the hour. We're a little over an hour. So I just want to thank you, Minister Latham, for being here, for
Welcome.
sharing your story, sharing different scenarios that women go through, because that's what it was about. What is a woman to do? How is she to manage things? And there's so many opportunities because, especially for African American women, like you said, we have so much pressure on our shoulders. And I think sometimes we raise our children, our women children, our girl children up to be strong. But sometimes we need to also teach them how to lean on others. And it's okay. It's okay. So that's what this episode was. This to show you that it's okay, that all of us have something that we're struggling with, and there are so many opportunities out there for times such as this. Minister Latham, is there anything you wanted to leave the women with?
Well, my whole thing is like there are people here and around you that want to help. You don't have to feel like you're alone. Start with the Lord first and foremost. If
First
you
and
don't know
foremost.
Him, I pray that you will come to know Him and know that look, whether you can get anybody else on the phone or not, you can always talk to the Lord
Come on
at
now.
all times. Amen.
Yes.
And then after that, like I said, look around you. You have friends, you have family members that really do want to help. And sometimes we try to act like we're all right all the time.
Put that pride down. Put that
Okay.
pride
You
down.
need to reach out. You need to say, look,
Yes.
I need you. I need some help. And then reach out, and I'm sure someone is out there to help. But like I said, we have resources. If you look on your internet or whatever, most cities have lots of things available to you. And if you're a member of a church, like I said, find the people in your church that are going to be there and be supportive as well. And if there's stuff that's not going on, as we said, like you said, that needs to be going on, open your mouth. Tell your bishop, tell your pastor, tell some of your leaders. We would like to have this kind of thing going on, and work, and then get involved.
Hello. Hello.
Don't
Give
just
back. Make it
get
a
back. Yeah,
circle.
get involved. You got something to offer. So get involved,
Right.
and you do what you need to do to help that situation as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so very much. I know it's going to bless some women who get a chance to look at it, either those that were with us tonight and those that probably will watch the replay. So thank you, everyone. As you know, this is Let's Just Talk with Kim. We are on every Monday night at 7 p.m. So catch me next week.
All right.
Bye.
God bless.